Hello, this is a little tutorial on how to start toe-up socks so that you can do 2 at a time sock knitting. So this is a project that I've almost completed, and I started knitting at the toes, and then you work your way up all the way to the top, and then you cast off at this bit. Sorry, don't know words anymore. Anyway, so this is a different sock that I've knit, and this is what you get. And then when you've started the toes, you cast on this little bit, then you start increasing until you've got your toe done, and then you can just keep on knitting in the round until you have a really long tube, and then you end up here. And what you then do is you can put in afterthought heel. And knitting socks like this is really fast, because when you're knitting the sock itself, it's not, it's kind of mindless knitting really. You're just making a tube. So this is a really good project if you want something that's on the go, keep in your bag. Sorry about the crunchy sound in the background. That's the cats eating, and they have like hard crunchy food things. And that's fireworks, because this is the Netherlands and this is a crazy country and we light fireworks in the street for no reason. I have this lovely Christmas sock yarn from West Yorkshire Spinners. It's not Christmas anymore, but I just want to kind of show you how this works. So what I've done is I've wound the yarn into a center pull ball or yarn cake, and I have one strand coming from the outside and one strand coming from the center, and I'm going to use these both at the same time to knit my socks 2 at a time. What I've also done is, because they don't come sort of like at the same length, so I've cut the yarn so that the color change, as you will, happens at the same exact point, because that way you will get socks that are similar. So we're going to start at the red side to start our toes, because I think that will be good. I'm just going to measure a bit. So this is the color changing moment, and then maybe here is where we can start. So let's start with the strand of yarn that comes from the outside of the cake. I hope this is visible enough, and I'm using my higher sharps 2mm needles, and what I'm going to do is just sort of hook my needle bit around the cake so that it kind of stays out of the picture. I hold my needles like this. The tips are pointing left. I have the cable on the right side, and I'm holding them one above the other, like stacked on top of each other. What I then do is slide the yarn over the top needle, whoop, like this, so that the short end of the yarn, hang on, don't want to lose this, is facing me, because I'm going to twist it like that, and now the short end of the yarn is at the back. You hold it as you would any long tail cast on. So that's probably quite similar to what you're used to. You could do a little knot in this to keep it in place, but I don't like it, and it's not really necessary. And you're going to do like a, you know, proper weaving in of your end when you've finished your socks, probably. Anyway, so it doesn't really matter, I think. So okay, so I've twisted it. I've got the short part in the back, the long part in the front. What we then do is wrap the yarn from the outside to the inside of the two needles, and we use the yarn at the bottom for the top needle and the yarn at the top for the bottom needle. So here, this counts as 2. So I have very wide feet, so I like to cast on my toe as 16 stitches. Some people like a more pointier toe. They'll start at 8 maybe and do like a lot of increases. Some people may have more than 16, but I think a 16 is sort of like counts as a wide toe, but to me that is most comfortable. So we keep wrapping 3, 4. What I do is I count at the bottom increase. 4, 5. It's a bit fidgety. 6. But you get the hang of it soon enough. 7. There. Ooh. That one. I'm just going to stretch it out so I can count it. Oh, I've done too many. Oh. There we go. Yes. Okay. So that is one side of the yarn is cast on. Now we're moving that back a bit. And then we're grabbing the other end of the ball. Now I know where to start because what I did was from this color change, and then here should be the same location in the yarn as the other sock. So slide it there, twist the yarn so that the short end is facing the back and the long end is facing me. And then we're going to do another 16. So bottom one wraps around the top needle. Top one, sorry, that was wrong. The top one wraps around the bottom needle. The bottom one wraps around the top needle. And you keep switching them. 9, 10, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so I have 2 sets of 16 sort of like cast on stitches. What we're going to do now, get this out of the way, is we're going to start to knit this. But before we do that, we just check that the color change in the sock is at about the same. Now, this is not an exact science, and you know, sometimes this will differ anyway, but this is pretty much accurate, like pretty much the same. So we've cast on like this. We switch our needles around. So now the yarn is, the needles are facing right. It's already a little bit messy, but this is because I wrapped my cable around my skein, so it's a bit, or my ball, so it's a bit of a mess, but never mind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the bottom needle so that I can knit with it. And this will get easier. It's a bit fidgety at the moment, but it gets easier the more stitches you have. So what we want is that our short bit, which is here, crosses so that I can use my long bit to knit and it doesn't sort of like get loose. So this is like the shorter bit. I'm just going to pull that back and then grab my long bit so I can knit with that. I use a short bit for a tail end, but I guess you know what I mean. Now I'm just going to knit these 2 needles as 16 stitches. I'm not going to do anything special here. So it's just a bit fidgety. I'm trying to work around my camera. Okay, so that's sock number 1 done. And we move sock number 2 up. And try and get the tail end, which is this bit. Move it to the back. Pull it a little bit tight. Move our toes to the front. And then we can start knitting. So the top part of this is like what we're knitting now is, I'll just call this the top row, because when we hold the needles like stacked on top of each other, this is the top needle. So for these stitches, we're not doing anything special, just doing regular knit stitches. Knitting all 16 of them. Okay. What we do now is turn our work, pull the top needle through, or so these are like the bottom stitches, but we're putting that needle back in and pulling the bottom one out now. And what we're doing here, because of the way that we've cast on our stitches, and we don't want the stitches to twist, so we're going to knit in the back of these stitches, and that will make sure. The beginning one is always terrible because it's probably tightest, and by knitting in the back it means that the stitches will lie flat, and it's quite magical when you sort of do it like this. So this is knitting all these stitches in the back legs of the knitted loop. So knitting them in the front would be like this, but we're not doing that. We're knitting them in the back. So that our stitches lie flat and we have lovely flat toes, which is what we want. I just find this method just looks so much better than my sloppy Kitchener stitch, which, you know, is fine if you're really good at that, but I just always struggle. Sorry, that was the front door, but it wasn't a real problem because we knit that one. So we're moving on to knit the other sock. So for this one, we're also knitting in the back of the loops. Ooh. Finding this yarn a little bit splitty, but that always happens at the beginnings, I think. It should be better when you keep knitting. Okay, nearly there. So what we have now is two little toe flaps. Turn our work, shove the top needle back in, so what we're looking at here, I'll show you on this other toe, is this bit. And as you can see, it just lines perfectly. You can't really tell where you started. I find it quite magical and fun. So what we're going to do now is increase for the toes, because obviously this is not wide enough for our feet. We need a little bit of space. Now, you need to be careful at this point that you don't start knitting with the tail end, because the tail end's still here. As soon as you have a little bit of toe, what I usually do is just roll it up and stick it in the sock. And then it's out of your way. But here, you just have to kind of deal with it. as a little reminder to ourselves what side sock is which, we can stick a little stitch marker in sock number 1. There, so we know this is sock number 1, this is sock number 2. And then I usually, for increasing, so what I do is I knit the first stitch, and then with the next stitch I grab the stitch below put it on the needle and knit that as if it were a proper stitch. But obviously everybody has a different sort of like recipe or way that they like to do their increases. This is just how I like to do it. For my style of knitting, it just seems to give the sort of cleanest result. It's what I like. Obviously everybody should use their own increase way. So I knit the penultimate stitch, sort of grab the for the last stitch I grab the stitch that it came from, put it on the needle, and it's that stitch. Now I've increased this 2 stitches, so this row is now 18 stitches. And I'm going to do that with all 4 sides of this sock. So knit 1. I'm not sure this is in focus anymore. Grab the, oh, hang on. Grab the stitch for the next one, increase, and continue knitting. Until you get to the penultimate, or the last stitch really. Make 1, knit the last stitch, and turn your work. Shove the top needle back in. We know we're not at the end because our little stitch marker, this stupid cable, this stitch marker, sock 1 is over here, so we know we need to do a little bit more. Make 1, knit our stitches, knit 1, you see the other sock, and do the same there. So knit 1, make 1, knit to the end, or at least knit to before the last stitch. Then make one, knit the last stitch. Now all sides of my 2 socks have 18 stitches. For the next row really, I'm going to just knit all the stitches. I'm not going to increase. Don't grab the tail end, just knit. And what you do is, so I'm going to just knit on these 4 sides, this one round, and then the next round I'm doing the increases again. So it's knit, 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 increase, 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 increase. So I have 18 stitches now, and then the next round I've increased, I'll have 20 stitches. And then when you'll have 20, 20, 20 and 20. Then you do another row of no increases, just knit. And then you have another increase row where you'll have 22, 22, 22, 22. And you keep doing that increase round, regular knit round, until you have the desired amount of stitches. Now I usually go up to 30, but because I'm using quite thin needles this time, I'm going to increase to 32. But I do have quite wide feet, so it's really up to you. And then what you do is, when you have your stitches, you'll slowly start to notice when you're doing the increases that you have like a little toe appearing, and you keep knitting up, 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 and then it just becomes a tube. And then you can keep knitting until you think it's long enough, and then you add your ribbing, and you can do like a stretchy bind off so that it actually goes over your feet. And then you put in the heel, which is actually knit quite similar to the toes, except that you have to cut open this bit, put your needles in, and then you start knitting, and then you do actually have to do a little bit of Kitchener, but it's just on the toe or on the heel, so I don't find it really matters that much. So I hope that was helpful, because I know I struggled a little bit in the beginning with how to get started for 2 at a time socks. But I find sometimes when you see it, when somebody does it for you, it does help a lot. And you can sort of visualize, well, you are watching a video, so obviously you're visualizing what's happening, and it's a bit easier than in a book. So hopefully I'll get some more work done on these socks so that you can see the result. Okay, have a great day. Keep on knitting. See you. Bye.